Beloved hearts, step into this dawn with breath that trembles in gratitude. Feel the hush before sunrise, the moment heaven leans close enough to hear a whisper, and let your soul rise like the first golden ray kissing the earth. You who woke weary, you who woke wondering, listen, the shepherd of your tomorrow already walks the valley ahead, staff in hand, goodness and mercy trailing behind like twin banners of triumph. Open the windows of your spirit. Let the freshness of his promise surge through every corridor of doubt. Today, Psalm 23 is not ink on parchment. It is the pulse in your chest, the anthem in your lungs, the unbreakable covenant wrapping your steps in holy confidence. Come, drink deeply of this morning's strength. The cup is overflowing, and not a single drop is wasted on fear. Lift your eyes from the shadow to the summit, for the table is set, the oil is warm, and his love is the horizon that cannot be outrun. Now, gather these burning embers of truth and carry them into the day ahead. The Lord leads, not as one who merely gives directions and then steps back, but as a shepherd who places himself at the forefront of every journey, every valley, and every battlefield of the soul. To be led by him is to be held by him. This is not passive guidance, where signs are left for us to follow. This is intimate, personal, and relentless leadership. When David cried, "He leadeth me beside the still waters," he was not describing a casual stroll with a distant deity. He was bearing witness to a God who walks before his people, shoulders their burdens, and marks their path with his own footsteps. In our human frailty, we often demand clarity. We want to see 5 steps ahead, understand the outcome before taking the first move. But the Lord does not always show us the full picture. He does not promise a mapped-out blueprint. Instead, he promises his presence. He does not say, "Figure it out." He says, "Follow me." That, beloved, is a kind of leadership that silences fear and confronts chaos with a whisper. This is the shepherd's way. He walks ahead, and we follow the voice that knows every stone, every snare, every detour of our journey. Sometimes we feel lost not because we are far from God, but because we expect him to lead in the way the world does, with noise, announcements, and fanfare. But God leads through stillness. His guidance is often heard in the sacred hush between heartbeats. He leads us by the hand, not with a shout, but with a whisper. This is the way. Walk in it. And oh, what assurance this brings to know that our shepherd is not sending us into the darkness alone, but stepping into it before us. He leads with intentionality. Nothing is accidental. Every detour, every delay, every dry place, he has gone before us there. When the path seems narrow, it is because he is refining us. When the journey slows, it is because he is preparing the next stretch of the road. He sees what we cannot see. He shields us from what we may never know. And in his leadership, there is a peace the world cannot offer. The shepherd never loses his sheep. Not one, not ever. Even in our rebellion, in the moments we wander off and lose our way, he does not abandon us. He seeks. He leaves the 99 and comes running after the one, after you. He finds you when you don't know how to find yourself. His leadership is not based on our obedience, but on his unrelenting love. When we fail, he still leads. When we cry, he still leads. When we cannot walk, he carries us. On shoulders bruised from Calvary, arms outstretched with mercy. His leadership is not always in the path of least resistance. He leads through valleys. He leads through storms. He sometimes leads us into the wilderness so he can strip away the noise and speak directly to our soul. But he never leads us where his grace cannot sustain us. There is no terrain too rough, no cliff too steep, no night too long where the shepherd's presence does not remain constant. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Why? Because thou art with me. He leads with knowledge. He knows your yesterday, your today, and your tomorrow. He leads not just for your survival, but for your sanctification. What we think is a detour is often divine redirection. What we perceive as abandonment is preparation. He leads us beside still waters not to merely quench our thirst, but to teach us to trust the stillness. In the quiet, he speaks identity. In the pause, he whispers purpose. In the stillness, he reminds you, you are not just wandering, you are being led. Many of us are waiting for a loud sign, a flashing light, a miraculous encounter to confirm we are on the right path. But the Lord says, my sheep hear my voice. It is a daily, deliberate following. He is not just leading us to a destination. He is forming us in the journey. He is shaping our hearts, stretching our faith, strengthening our trust. And sometimes the greatest miracle is not the breakthrough, but the be still and know that anchors you in the waiting. Do you trust the shepherd enough to follow when the road is unclear? Can you walk when the path winds uphill and your legs grow weary? Faith is not about knowing the next step. It's about knowing who walks ahead of you. The shepherd doesn't need a trail, he is the trail. And when you don't know where to go, just lean in. Press your ear against his chest, feel the rhythm of his heart, and take the next step in sync with his voice. There is no safer place to be than behind the shepherd. The wolves may howl, the wind may roar, but the one who leads you has already conquered the grave. His leadership is marked by scars that tell the story of redemption. The same hands that were pierced for your sin now hold the map of your future. The one who bled for your freedom now walks ahead to ensure you never walk alone. Oh, what a leader. Oh, what a shepherd. And let this truth settle in your soul. Even if you feel like you are in the valley today, even if confusion clouds your mind or sorrow grips your heart, you are not forsaken. You are being led, step by step, breath by breath, miracle by miracle. Not one moment wasted, not one tear unseen. The shepherd is ahead of you. The shepherd is beside you. The shepherd is within you. So hold your head high, child of God. Lift your eyes. The one who leads is the one who loves. The one who calls you forward is the same who calms every storm. You are not navigating this life alone. You are not figuring it out on your own. You are being led by the shepherd who has never lost a battle, never missed a step, and never failed a soul who dared to follow. When the Lord brings us to green pastures, it is not merely to give our bodies rest. It is to nourish the soul, to restore what the world has drained, and to whisper to our weary hearts, here, my beloved, you are safe. These pastures are not defined by luxury or comfort in the eyes of the world. No, they are places chosen and prepared by the shepherd himself. Sacred spaces where divine provision meets human emptiness. To lie down in green pastures is not only an act of rest, it is an act of surrender. It is the soul acknowledging that the shepherd knows best, and it is trust that he will provide, not just barely but abundantly. Many of us are living in a constant state of striving. We are running from task to task, burden to burden, pressure to pressure. The soul becomes dry, brittle and depleted. We long for peace, for stillness, for the kind of rest that goes beyond sleep. And then the voice of the shepherd calls us, not to achieve more, not to run harder, but to lie down. That image is powerful. Sheep will not lie down unless they feel completely safe, free from fear, hunger, and friction. And so when David says, He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, it is a declaration of trust that the shepherd has already dealt with every threat, every hunger, and every disturbance. He doesn't ask us to lie down until we feel ready. He makes us lie down because he knows what we need even when we don't. There is a provision in the pasture that cannot be found in the hustle. It is in the pasture that we hear his voice most clearly. Not in the chaos of our calendars, but in the quiet of his presence. The green pasture is not always a physical place. It is often a moment in time where heaven interrupts the routine and calls us back to intimacy. It could be a verse that pierces the heart, a worship song that breaks the silence, a tear that falls during prayer. These are green pastures, places of supernatural feeding and healing that cannot be manufactured by human effort. When the Lord leads us to green pastures, it is never random. He knows the terrain of our hearts. He sees when we are running on empty, when the fire inside has dimmed, when joy has become a memory instead of a current. The pasture is where he invites us to stop striving and start receiving. The grass is not green because of our work. It is green because of his grace. It is a place where performance is laid down and presence is picked up. We don't earn this rest, we are led into it. Because he is a shepherd who knows that true strength comes from stillness. And sometimes the pasture doesn't look like what we expect. It may not be a season of outward abundance. In fact, it may come during a time of loss, of transition, of wilderness. But even there, he causes grass to grow. Even there, he provides manna from heaven. The pasture is not about perfect circumstances. It is about divine companionship. It is about lying down even when the storm rages, because the shepherd has spread out green pasture under your feet and said, "Here, eat. Here, rest. I am with you." Let us not forget that the pasture is a place of preparation. Before battles come, the shepherd gives us rest. Before we walk through valleys, he ensures our souls are fed. Too often we want to skip the pasture and move straight into purpose. But the shepherd knows an unfed soul cannot withstand the valley. A restless heart cannot discern his voice in the darkness. And so he slows us down. He lays us down, not to delay our destiny, but to fortify it. It is in the green pasture that identity is reaffirmed. We are reminded that we are not slaves to the world's expectations. We are sheep of the Good Shepherd. We are not defined by what we produce, but by whose we are. The pasture resets our perspective. What we thought was urgent fades in the light of what is eternal. The voice of the shepherd drowns out the noise of the accuser. In this sacred space, we remember who we are, chosen, seen, loved, and led. And yet, many of us resist the pasture. We struggle to be still. We are so used to movement that rest feels like failure. But let us not confuse inactivity with unimportance. The shepherd is doing more in us during the moments of stillness than we often recognize. Roots grow deep in quiet soil. Healing happens in the hidden place. And the pasture is where he restores what was broken, revives what was dry, and renews what was weary. He prepares the pasture ahead of time. Long before we arrive, the shepherd has scoped out the land, cleared the threats, and ensured it is a place of safety. When you find yourself in a season of peace, do not rush through it. Linger, savor, receive the provision. Let the green pasture feed your faith, strengthen your trust, and remind you of the one who brought you there. It is not an accident, it is an act of divine care. The green pasture is also a picture of his constant attention. A good shepherd never leaves his sheep unattended. Even in rest the shepherd watches. Even in sleep he guards. His eye is always upon us. There is no moment, no breath where you are unseen. And that kind of security allows the soul to truly rest. Not a restless sleep filled with anxiety, but a holy stillness filled with trust. Perhaps today you find yourself in a dry place, far from what feels like green pastures. Maybe the stress of life has pulled you away from his peace. The good news is this: the shepherd is always leading. And if you will quiet your heart, even now you may find that he is beckoning you back. He never stops calling. He never stops preparing. There is always pasture in his presence. So stop, breathe, listen. The shepherd is near. The pastures are ready. Let go of the weight. Lay down the burden. There is provision here, not only for your body, but for your soul. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to understand it. You simply have to receive it. And when you do, you will find what the world cannot give: rest that restores, peace that protects, and a shepherd who is never far. The green pasture is not the end of the journey. It is the place where the soul is reminded that it does not walk alone. It walks with the one who provides, who protects, and who never, ever lets go. Still waters, they are not just poetic imagery. They are the very breath of calm from heaven to a soul battered by the winds of life. When Scripture says, "He leadeth me beside the still waters," it is not speaking of stagnant ponds or lifeless pools, but of deep, sacred peace. divine tranquility that flows quietly without force, yet carries the power to still the fiercest storm inside a man's heart. This is not the peace of the world, shallow and dependent on perfect circumstances. No, this is the peace of the shepherd, the kind that surpasses all understanding, that guards your heart and mind, even when the ground beneath you shakes. There is something profoundly healing about stillness. And yet, for many of us, stillness feels foreign. We are so accustomed to noise, external and internal, that silence unnerves us. We've equated movement with progress, activity with worth, and noise with life. But the shepherd knows that the soul does not heal in noise. The heart does not stabilize in chaos. So he leads us gently and persistently to waters that do not roar but whisper, waters that do not demand but invite. He leads us to places where the distractions fall away and only the voice of God remains. Still waters are not a luxury. They are a necessity. They are a part of the shepherd's care, a deliberate pause in the rhythm of life. He does not only lead us to green pastures to lie down. He brings us to waters that reflect his face, waters that mirror back to us who we are when the world's false reflections have shattered our identity. These waters are mirrors of grace. They don't just provide peace, they restore perspective. They slow the frantic beating of a worried heart and whisper, "Be still and know that I am God." Many walk through life like ships tossed in the waves, pulled by fear, driven by anxiety, drowned by stress. But the still waters say, "Come and drink without striving." Here, the shepherd is not in a rush. He is not urging us forward in panic. He is inviting us into the rhythm of rest, into the sanctuary of his peace. In stillness, we do not lose momentum, we gain strength. In quiet, we do not fall behind, we find the clarity to move forward with purpose. To sit beside still waters is not to escape life, but to prepare for it. The shepherd knows what lies ahead. He knows the valleys we must walk through, the shadows we will face, the enemies we may encounter. But before we face any of that, he offers us stillness. This stillness is not weakness. It is warfare. It is the kind of peace that becomes your weapon. It is the calm that comes when you know who walks with you, who goes before you, and who holds you when your own strength fades. Still waters are where warriors are formed, not in the clamor of battle, but in the quiet confidence that God is with them. It's in this place of still waters where the Lord re-centers our spirit. He takes the fragments of a scattered mind and gathers them into wholeness. He lifts the burdens we've carried without realizing and says, "This weight is not yours." He quiets the lies of the enemy and replaces them with truth. He reminds us, not with shouts but with whispers, "You are mine. You are not forgotten. You are not alone." The power of still waters is not in the absence of noise, but in the presence of God. Have you noticed how water reflects when it's still? In chaos you can't see through it, just a churning mess. But in stillness, the water becomes a mirror. That is what the Lord desires for your soul, that in the calm you would see clearly again, that in his peace you would regain vision. The enemy wants to keep you moving so fast, thinking so loud, worrying so constantly, that you can't hear the gentle voice of the shepherd calling your name. But the still waters invite you to stop, to breathe, to return to the one who never stopped watching over you. Stillness is not something we can create on our own. We cannot force peace into our souls. We must be led there. The shepherd leads us because he knows we wouldn't choose it ourselves. We would keep running, keep pushing, keep surviving. But he wants more than survival for us. He wants restoration. And restoration begins in stillness. The same God who spoke the world into existence now speaks rest into your chaos. Peace, be still, he says, not just to the wind and waves, but to your soul. Sometimes the Lord will lead us to still waters through unexpected means. A closed door, a moment of waiting, a pause in our plans, and we resist it. We cry out for motion. But the shepherd knows stillness is where your strength returns. Stillness is where your spirit is revived. Stillness is where you hear his voice, not distorted by the noise of ambition or fear, but as clear as a gentle stream. Don't despise the still waters. Don't rush through them. Sit beside them. Drink deeply. Rest long. In that quiet, healing comes. The wounds you've hidden beneath busy schedules and brave faces will begin to mend. The questions you've silenced for too long will be answered not with explanations, but with presence. The shepherd won't always fix the storm immediately, but he will always offer his peace in the middle of it. That is the miracle of still waters. Not that the world changes, but that you are changed in the middle of it. Let your soul be calmed by the truth that the shepherd is near. He is not watching from a distance. He is beside you, leading you. You don't have to find the waters on your own. He knows where they are. He knows what your soul needs. He knows how long you've been running. And he is not here to rebuke you, but to restore you. So lean into the stillness. Let it wash over your mind. Let it silence the accusations, the comparisons, the not enoughs. Let it speak louder than your regrets. Let it remind you that your worth is not in your pace, but in your position as a beloved sheep in the care of the Good Shepherd. Still waters, holy waters, waters that heal, that cleanse, that quiet the inner war. Waters that make no demand but offer endless grace. If you have wandered far from them, today the shepherd says, come back. If your heart has grown too loud to hear him, he says, let me lead you again. You were not made to run forever. You were made to rest in him. This is the place of restoration. This is where your soul exhales. This is where the shepherd meets you, not with condemnation, but with comfort. You are safe here. You are loved here. You are led here. Beside still waters, peace flows, and in that peace your soul finds its home. There comes a moment in every believer's journey when the soul cries out for more than comfort, more than quiet. When the weight of sorrow, sin, or weariness has emptied the heart of strength, of passion, of clarity. This is when we encounter the profound grace of restoration. He restoreth my soul. What a holy declaration. What a sacred promise. It is not simply a poetic phrase. It is a lifeline for the broken, the lost, the drained and the desperate. This restoration is not cosmetic, it is foundational. It reaches into the places no one sees, the inner chambers where wounds have festered, where fears have multiplied, and where hope has grown silent. The shepherd comes, not with judgment, but with healing in his hands and wholeness in his voice. Restoration begins where human effort ends. You can mend a broken schedule, rebuild a broken house, even repair a broken car. But when the soul is broken, when the inner man is shattered, only the Creator can restore what he designed. And that is exactly what he does. Not reluctantly, not conditionally, but willingly, eagerly, lovingly. When you have nothing left to offer, the shepherd kneels beside you and begins the work no one else can do. Not to patch you up, but to restore you fully, to return you to the beauty of who he made you to be before the world tried to redefine you. How many of us are walking around looking whole on the outside but are fractured within? We've learned how to smile through the struggle, how to function while fatigued, how to speak faith even when our souls are screaming for relief. But God sees through all of it. He does not wait for us to admit our brokenness before he begins his work. No, his very nature is restoration. It is what he does. The shepherd does not just feed his sheep. He heals them. He does not just guide them. He mends them when they fall, when they wander, when they are wounded by the thorns of life. The soul can be broken in many ways, through grief, through shame, through disappointment. Sometimes it's sin that shatters us. Sometimes it's sorrow. Sometimes it's the relentless grind of life that wears us down to a version of ourselves we barely recognize. We begin to lose joy, passion, tenderness, or trust. But the shepherd does not leave us there. His restoration is not like the world's. It doesn't just numb the pain or distract us from the cracks. It reaches in and says, let me touch what you've been hiding. Let me breathe new life into what you thought was gone. For to restore the soul is to return it to alignment with God's heart. It is to take what has been tangled and make it whole. And sometimes, before he restores, the shepherd must remove. He may peel away lies we've believed, identities we've embraced that were never from him, burdens we've carried that he never asked us to bear. It may hurt at first, but oh, the healing that follows. Because in that sacred space of surrender, where we stop pretending and start yielding, the master surgeon begins to stitch the torn places with threads of grace and truth. Restoration is not just healing, it is redemption. It's the reclaiming of what was lost. The soul that was burdened with guilt is now lifted by forgiveness. The heart that was fractured by betrayal is now held together by divine love. The mind that was clouded by confusion is now steadied by the peace of Christ. The soul that was deadened by despair is revived by eternal hope. This is not a surface level repair. It is a divine renewal, a supernatural reset of the very essence of who you are. When he restores the soul, he also restores the song. That song you thought you'd never sing again. The joy, the passion, the purpose. It returns. And not as it was before, but deeper, richer, fuller. Because restoration always brings increase. God does not return you to who you used to be. He restores you to who you were meant to be, even better, even stronger, even more alive. Your testimony becomes richer. Your worship becomes deeper. Your trust becomes unshakable. And understand this, the restoration of your soul is not just for your benefit. It is for the glory of God and the healing of others. When he restores you, you become a testimony of his goodness. You become a vessel through which others will find hope. The same hands that lifted you from the pit will now use your story to pull others out. Your scars become sacred signs of his grace. Your pain becomes purpose. What was broken becomes beautiful, not because of your effort, but because of the shepherd's mercy. But restoration is a process. It doesn't always happen in a moment. Sometimes it's a journey, slow, sacred, step by step. Some days you'll feel progress, other days you'll feel stuck, but the shepherd does not grow weary in the work. He stays close. He walks with you. He whispers truth over you when you forget who you are. He sings over you in the night. He covers you with his presence even when your emotions betray you. You are not alone in this. He is restoring you even when you don't feel it. Even when all you can offer is broken pieces. Especially then, and don't be afraid to come to him empty. The shepherd does his best work in emptiness. When the soul is poured out dry and desperate, he fills, he anoints, he revives. You don't need to clean yourself up before you ask for restoration. You just need to come. Come with the cracks, with the questions, with the weight. Lay it all at his feet. He already knows, and still he chooses to restore. For those who feel disqualified by sin, by failure, by weakness, here this restoration is for you. God is not surprised by your struggle. He is not ashamed of your scars. The enemy will try to convince you that restoration is for the strong, for the faithful. But Jesus came for the sick, not the healthy. He came for the broken. He came for the outcast, the rejected, the forgotten. He came for you. And when the shepherd says, I will restore your soul, there is no clause, no conditions, just grace. This restoration is also deeply personal. No two souls are restored the same way. Some through stillness, some through weeping, some through worship, some through time, but all through him. He knows your journey. He knows what was taken. He knows what you've hidden. And he knows how to restore it all, fully, faithfully, perfectly. So let your soul lean into the shepherd's hands. Let him do the work only he can do. Not just to patch you up, but to make you whole. Not just to help you function, but to help you flourish. He doesn't restore you so you can go back to survival. He restores you so you can walk in purpose, in joy, in freedom, in identity. You don't have to stay broken. You don't have to pretend you're okay. The shepherd is here. His hands are open. His heart is full of mercy, and his promise remains unchanged. He restoreth my soul. There is a moment in the path of every child of God where direction becomes more than a matter of geography. It becomes a matter of destiny. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. This is not about simply choosing right over wrong. It is about being led by the hand of the shepherd through the roads that refine your character, align your heart with heaven, and fulfill a divine purpose not just for your benefit but for his glory. This path is sacred. It is not the easy path, not always the comfortable one, but it is the right one, and it is paved with the promises of God. The shepherd does not point from a distance. He leads. He walks ahead. He steps into every valley before you, every crossroads before you, every hard decision before you. He does not send you. He accompanies you. And the path he chooses is not random. It is not the path of least resistance, nor the path of worldly success. It is the path of righteousness. A road that keeps your soul aligned with his word, your heart beating in rhythm with his will, and your life positioned to reflect his name. The paths of righteousness are not about performance. They are about positioning. When you walk where he leads, you are not trying to earn his favor. You are walking because you have his favor. You are not trying to achieve righteousness. You are walking in the righteousness that comes from him. It is a journey of surrender, not of striving. And the further you walk with him, the more you become like him. This is the beauty of discipleship, not that we follow rules, but that we follow the righteous one himself. These paths often require faith. They do not always make sense in the natural. Sometimes they lead through wilderness, through waiting, through wilderness where it feels like nothing is growing, nothing is changing, nothing is happening. But trust this, if the shepherd is leading you, the path is not pointless. Every step, every turn, every pause is intentional. He is not only taking you somewhere, he is shaping you for something. He is forming the kind of righteousness that cannot be faked, the kind of purity that shines in the dark, the kind of holiness that stands firm when the winds blow. To walk in the paths of righteousness is also to walk in separation. It means there will be places you cannot go, voices you cannot follow, compromises you cannot make. And it may feel lonely, it may feel narrow, but this is the narrow road that leads to life. Not because God wants to limit you, but because he wants to protect you. The shepherd does not guide us into restriction, he guides us into freedom. The kind of freedom that comes when your life is no longer ruled by sin, shame, or the opinion of man. It is on these righteous paths where your discernment sharpens, where your spiritual ears begin to hear clearly, where your eyes begin to see with vision. And as you walk, you begin to realize this is not just about you. For his name's sake, the shepherd's guidance over your life is not simply for your blessing. It is for the honor of his name. When you walk in righteousness, you become a living testimony. People see your peace and wonder where it comes from. They see your choices and recognize a different kind of wisdom. They see your walk and are drawn to the shepherd. This is why the enemy fights so hard to distract you from this path. He doesn't mind if you're successful in the world as long as you stray from righteousness. He doesn't mind if you look busy, even spiritual, as long as you are not walking in obedience. Because righteousness is where authority flows. Righteousness is where clarity lives. Righteousness is where intimacy with God deepens. It's not about being perfect, it's about being aligned. And when you are aligned with God, you walk in the kind of strength that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. You must understand too, that righteousness is not something you carry like a trophy. It is something you wear like armor. When you walk in righteousness, you are shielded from many attacks. Temptation loses its grip. Condemnation loses its sting. Confusion loses its voice. Because righteousness is not just your standing before God, it is your power against the enemy. The shepherd leads you there, not only for your growth, but for your protection. And these paths, these holy paths, are where legacy is built. Every decision to follow the shepherd, Every sacrifice made for holiness, every moment of obedience sows a seed that will bear fruit beyond your lifetime. Your children will walk on the roads you chose. Your community will drink from the wells you dug in obedience. Your legacy will not be defined by earthly accolades, but by eternal impact. Because righteousness is remembered in heaven, it echoes long after your steps have passed. But what about when the path is unclear? What about when you can't feel His hand, when the way ahead looks foggy, when you're unsure if you're still in His will? Even then, He is leading. Sometimes, the path of righteousness is walked by faith, not by sight. And in those moments, your trust becomes your worship. You may not know where you're going, but you know who you are following. And that is enough. He does not abandon His sheep mid-journey. He does not mislead. If you stay close to Him, He will correct your course. He will realign you. He will whisper, "This is the way. Walk in it." Let your heart rest in this truth. Your shepherd is committed to your righteousness. More than your comfort, more than your temporary happiness. He is committed to your eternal well-being, to the sanctity of your soul. He is not guiding you aimlessly. He is guiding you with eternity in mind, with purpose in every step, with love in every instruction. So yield to His leadership. Trust the path even when it wins. Embrace the discipline even when it stings. Obey the voice even when it challenges your flesh. Because on this path, this holy path, there is life, there is peace, there is purpose. You may walk through trials, but you will not walk alone. You may face resistance, but you will be empowered. You may be misunderstood, but you will be seen by heaven. This is the path of righteousness. This is the way of the shepherd. And when you walk it, not perfectly, but faithfully, you will find that everything you once searched for in the wrong places begins to flow into your life naturally. Joy, clarity, favor, courage, wisdom, fruitfulness, not because you chased them, but because you followed Him. This is the reward of righteousness. Not what you gain, but who you become. Not just blessings, but transformation. The shepherd leads you not only on this path, but He leads you through it until your heart beats with His, until your life reflects His name, until your story brings Him glory. And in that, you will know every step was worth it. Every sacrifice mattered. Every yes resounded in eternity. He leads you in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. And there is no safer, no greater, no more powerful place to be. There are moments in life when shadows fall across our path. Not because we've strayed, but because we are still being led. It is here that Psalm 23 reaches into the deepest corners of the human experience and reminds us of something most sacred. Yeah, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for Thou art with me. This is not a promise that we will be spared from the valley. It is a promise that we will never walk it alone. There is no denial in these words. There is acknowledgement of pain, of fear, of suffering, but also an unshakable confidence that even in the darkest place, God is present. We must understand that the valley is not a sign of abandonment. The presence of the valley does not mean the absence of the shepherd. In fact, the valley is often where His nearness becomes most real. In the sunlight of success, in the fields of peace, we may take His presence for granted. But in the valley, when the shadows stretch long and fear creeps in, it is then that the whisper of the shepherd cuts through the silence and reminds us, "I am with you." His presence does not always remove the valley, but it transforms how we walk through it. No longer trembling and confused, but steady, unafraid, upheld by a holy hand. The valley of the shadow of death is not just about physical danger. It represents every kind of darkness we encounter in life. Grief that paralyzes, betrayal that wounds, fear that torments, uncertainty that steals our peace. The shadow of death looms large in 1,000 forms. It could be the diagnosis, the loss, the financial ruin, the broken relationship, the silent nights filled with tears no one sees. But even there, even especially there, the shepherd speaks, not always with answers, but always with presence. Shadows only exist where there is light. The valley of the shadow is not devoid of light. It is only overshadowed, which means the light is still near. The presence of the shadow proves the nearness of the light. And in that realization comes strength. You may not see clearly, but you are not lost. You may feel afraid, but you are not forsaken. You may be walking low, but you are still being led. The shepherd does not abandon his sheep when the terrain gets rough. No, he stays closer. And hear this, you are walking through the valley. You are not living in it. You are not building a home there. You are passing through. It is not your destination. It is a passage. And every step you take is watched by the eyes of your shepherd. He counts your tears. He hears your silent prayers. He knows the weight you carry. And he walks beside you with the strength you lack, the peace you crave, the hope you thought was gone. There is no fear in his presence. That is why David could say, I will fear no evil. Not because evil wasn't real, but because the shepherd is greater. The valley may echo with the threats of darkness, but they cannot overpower the voice of the one who walks with you. His rod and his staff, they comfort you, not just as poetic tools, but as real signs of his authority and protection. The rod defends, the staff guides. Together, they remind the sheep that the shepherd is active, attentive, and completely in control. And oh, how the valley refines us. While we long for the mountaintops, it is in the low places that character is forged, that faith is purified, that intimacy with God is deepened. On the mountaintop we celebrate. In the valley we become. We become people who know the voice of God, who depend not on what we see but on whom we follow. We become worshippers not because everything is perfect, but because we've tasted his faithfulness in the fire. Many want to skip the valley. Many try to run through it or avoid it altogether. But the shepherd never rushes. He walks. He paces you through it, because there are things you can only learn in the valley. Revelations about yourself, about him, about his promises. The valley slows you down, strips you of distractions, and sharpens your spiritual hearing. You begin to crave not answers, but his voice, not solutions, but his nearness. Because suddenly you realize the greatest comfort is not found in the removal of trouble, but in the reality of his presence. If you find yourself in the valley right now, lift your eyes. The shepherd has not left. He has not forgotten. His silence is not absence. His delays are not denials. He is working even when you cannot feel it. He is holding you even when you are too tired to pray. He is fighting for you when you can barely lift your head. And he is whispering, fear not. I am with you. The same voice that spoke light into darkness still speaks peace into your soul. This truth must sink deep. God is not only God of the mountains. He is Lord of the valleys. He is not just the God of breakthroughs. He is the God of breakdowns. He is not just the God of blessings. He is the God of burdens. And in the valley, his grace flows freely, not in drops, but in rivers. His love does not lessen when the shadows fall. If anything, it wraps tighter, it pours deeper, it sings louder. The valley may be where you feel most vulnerable, but it is also where God reveals his strength. It is where miracles are born, where testimonies are forged, where lives are forever changed. You will not walk this valley in vain. You will not come out the same. You will come out stronger, softer, wiser, bolder, more dependent, more full of the Spirit, more aware of what truly matters. And when you finally emerge, and you will look back and see not only the pain, but the providence. You will see how his hand held you, how his voice led you, how his mercy carried you when your legs gave out. You will remember that even in the darkest moment, you were never for 1 second alone, so do not be afraid. The valley is real. The shadows are real. But so is your shepherd. His presence is not an abstract doctrine. It is a living, breathing, holy reality. He walks beside you now, not watching from above, not calling from behind, but beside, step by step, tear by tear, breath by breath. In the valley of the shadow of death, there is still purpose, there is still hope, and there is still the shepherd's voice. Listen for it, Lean into it. Trust it. He will lead you through. He always has. He always will. My beloved, no matter what season you are in, whether by still waters or walking through the valley, remember this: you are not alone. The Good Shepherd is with you. He leads, he restores, he protects, and he provides. Stand firm, keep walking, lift your eyes, for surely his goodness and mercy shall follow you all the days of your life. Amen.